Hey, hello, good people, and welcome to our live event with Averity and Averity's John Birchall. I'm Chris Allaire, the CEO and founder of Averity. Those guys back there. Thanks for joining us. So the goal of this conversation was first and foremost to introduce John, but the big question that's going on out there in society is what everyone's talking about is AI, right? But all these AI, how AI is built, but really important in the recruiting world, especially in the engineering world, even more than that in New York City, is how do you hire? How do you recruit an AI engineer? How do you find them in New York? How do you identify one? What is the title of these people? What is their skill set? What is an AI engineer? Is an AI engineer even a thing? So how do you answer all these questions? Well, you bring in the formidable expert in the field. So I'd like to introduce everybody to John Birchall. John,
Yeah,
thank you for being here today. How's it going?
thank you for having me, Chris. I appreciate the kind introduction.
So, all right. So, John, just for human sake, this is most of the things out there that are watching this right now are humans, and probably my dog in the other room. What are give an idea as like who you are, what's your title, obviously a little bit something about where you're from, and so who are we talking to today?
Yep. So I'm John Birchall. I run our AI, ML, and all things data recruitment team at Averity. I've been with Averity. It will be 8 years next February. It's a long time when it sounded out there. So yeah, so my team does everything, all things data, and obviously recently there's been a heavy focus on the AI side of things. Who am I? Obviously, I do not have an American accent. I am originally from England, just outside of Liverpool, and I'm a big Liverpool FC fan.
Awesome. What? So you started recruiting in 2018. So obviously the landscape has changed a lot from 2018 to where it is today. What was it when you first started in was it February of 2018, right? So early 2018, what was it then? And then obviously we'll talk a little bit more about it, but how did you transition into that type of stuff? What was it back then?
Yeah, I mean, back then I think roles were a lot more defined. The majority of the roles that we would work on was a clear distinction between either being a data engineer or being a data scientist. We also did some, data analyst roles as well. But the mainstay from the data side of things was you're either a data engineer or a data scientist back then. And again, very clear cut lines at that point. I mean, even back then, and then, things have progressed so rapidly over those years. But 8 years ago, even a data scientist, like, not many people really understood what a data scientist did or what they were supposed to do. Um, and we've had a little bit of that maybe a few years ago when it comes to AI engineers as well. But it was an interesting time and interesting to see where things have developed from for sure.
So I remember when we kicked off the data group in at a Verity, and I think we kicked it off in like mid 16 or something like that. And I remember going to an event back in the day, and all you had to do was say big data, machine learning, and algorithm in like a sentence, and everybody stopped what they were doing. You're like, wait, you're like, we have a machine learning, or we have a big data problem, so we're using a machine learning algorithm to solve it. And people are like, oh my god, like how did you figure that out? No one had any idea what the hell anyone was talking about. And then there was big data, and then that naturally that evolved into big data. So what have you seen the evolution go from in the data engineering space into where it is? Like what have the roles encompassed?
Yeah, I mean, from a data engineering standpoint, it was pretty straightforward back then. I mean, if anybody had Spark on their resume and actually used Spark, like you were a hot commodity back then in the big data space. It was either like Python or Scala. If you'd use Spark, great, and then a cloud platform. I mean, you were it. You were sitting pretty and getting a lot of opportunities back then. On the data science side of things, I mean, I remember taking job order calls and clients of ours would say, "Well, we need a data scientist." And we're like, "Oh, that's great. Obviously, that's what we do. What do you want them to do?" And we're like, "Well, we don't know, but everyone's hiring a data scientist, so we want to have one as well." It's like, Okay, well, yeah, that's fine, and we'll still find you one, but you should probably understand what you actually want this person to do when they walk through the door. So yeah, again, it was how things have progressed over 8 years is crazy, and then since then, over the years, you've seen a kind of melding of roles together over time. So obviously, between being a data engineer and a data scientist, you then start to see the rise of a machine learning engineer, right? Between a data analyst and a data engineer. You'd have like analytics engineering. You'd have different types of on the data science side, and applied scientist has come through. So yeah, trying to take skill sets that were there was a delineation between the two originally, and then trying to find people who can do both sides of things became a hot commodity, and that's kind of continued throughout the years here for sure until where we are now with AI engineers.
What is the big title that people are looking for these days? Do they have a title right now, or is it still? I mean, are we kind of fuzzy in those worlds?
Titles, oh, titles. Titles are great, right? Because you speak to a client and you can have two job order calls on the same day. The titles can be exactly the same and they're two different jobs, right? The titles, it all depends what the client is looking for. I would say that the hottest title obviously right now is like AI/ML engineer. That's probably the big one at the moment. But you never really know what the job is until you take a really tight job order with the client and really find out what they want this individual to do. And we always say is like, look, the title doesn't matter to us. Just tell us what the job is and what you want the outcomes to be, and we'll find you the right person.
Are you seeing? Well, I mean, well, I think it's been kind of nice because there's some pretty nice brand names, some pretty prominent clients recently calling us looking to expand into this AI space. Are there? I guess from a skill set standpoint, are there? Because I guess there's that weird line between machine learning and data science, right? You know, kind of like where it's evolved into. Are you seeing certain skill sets within the AI engineering space that are relevant from a machine learning or from engineers of old from the data stuff blown into to now where we are with AI?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I think it was largely more about like the tools and technologies that you've utilized. And I think now in the AI side, it is really more about the experience that you've had and what business outcomes you've been able to achieve through your work versus like they need technology X, Y, Z. Like even in an AI and ML engineer, you can still have, depending on the client, or even at the same company sometimes where they want something that's a little bit heavier on the infrastructure side of things, right? And building the infrastructure to deploy the models off on. And then you can also have towards the other end, which is more about deploying the models, fine tuning them, generating those business purposes, which you would call more of applied science or applied scientist. So even inside of this, there will be shifts apart from what the goal of that individual is. As opposed to like, you use technology XYZ because most of the time people are using all the modern tech stack. There's not really a big difference between if you speak to one AI engineer versus the other. We're all kind of using the same tools and tech anyway.
So a lot of because I remember if I could date myself a little bit back in the day, if you will, there's a very distinct difference between a software engineer, DevOps engineer, a machine learning engineer or a data scientist, if you will. And I remember when we had two different teams, one was data science, one was data engineering. So like the lines of all obviously are kind of as you mentioned have completely blurred in together now where, you know, it's a lot of everything. What is what is that? So for people out there who are trying to recruit, trying to hire these people, like what is it like trying to find these people right now?
I mean, it's competitive, right? To find the good ones, it's competitive. We've obviously seen in the last couple of years where candidates are framing themselves with an AI skill set because they understand that that's the hottest space at the moment. The good thing about us is we know if those people are being accurate or not because the network of the candidates that we've I mean we've known the data people in the data space in New York City for 8 years, right? So we will know who really is an ML or AI engineer and not somebody who's just changed their title last year to try and maybe get a different type of role because they think that's going to give them an edge in the job market.
What are it's interesting. I want to get to that in a second. Kind of the idea of the network and knowing who they are and what they've done before in the past versus what they are now. Are there on the recruiting side of it? Like, where's the demand? I know as you said, it's competitive. Is it finance? Is it insurance? Is it manufacturing? Is it you know?
I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it's literally it's all of the above, right? Everyone's trying to leverage AI, right? It doesn't matter what industry, and everyone's always trying to find an edge. I would say where we've seen the biggest uptake recently is more in kind of founding engineer positions, and it could either be at an early stage seed round startup, right, or it could also be in a larger company that is looking to start their first AI specific practice, and they're looking for their founding AI engineer internally at this company, even though it's a larger organization. So we've seen, I'd say that's where we've seen the biggest uptake. But again, it doesn't matter really what industry you're in. It's a space where you can find a competitive advantage. People want to utilize it and bring it into their company.
What do you think the difficulty in trying to find these people is right now? Right? Is everyone's doing it? Like, kind of shouldn't I just there's billions of people out there on the marketplace. Can
Yeah.
I throw an ad up? What or aren't people just falling from the sky? Like, what's going on out there?
Yeah, I know you're saying everybody's doing it. It sounds like everybody's doing it, and there's a lot of people who have it on the resume now that maybe didn't 2 years ago. So yeah, I mean, how do you find them? Good quality candidates are hard to find. That's never going to go away. That's never going to go out of fashion. There's not going to be some kind of boom where like these high quality candidates that are. And the focus that we usually have, right, is in those really high level individual contributor, senior staff principal level ICs, the doers, right, that have a very, very specialized skill set that are at the top of the game, in New York City. Now, they're very few and far between. If you just throw up an ad, right, you are going to get about 500 resumes in 24 hours. And good luck filtering through that because 99.6% of that are not going to be qualified or relevant. They're not going to be good enough for what you're looking for. I mean that's a challenge for companies who are looking to hire, right? Because it's a big time suck. Um, and if you're just looking at resumes, you don't really know how good somebody is. And resumes these days, you throw it into ChatGPT, like is it how accurate is it? And the beauty with us, and we know the top players because we've known them since their fledgling career started, right? We have seen 5, 6 versions of their resumes over the past, 8 years. And we can tell when they like update and gives a new one that resume actually looks like their resume from 1, 2 years ago, and they've just added to it. It doesn't look like a different person, which I think there's quite a lot of that going on these days with people applying.
So I got to something I know that we've done that's a lot different than that's out there, or this specialization. And because you mentioned it kind of being specialized. So where do you think being specialized, especially in your craft, in your field, in this highly particular space, like how is it? I mean, obviously you're talking to I mean, just broaden like the same types of people over the last couple of years, but like, how do you think it really has given you a competitive advantage?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're speaking to people who are in this niche area every single day, I mean, you obviously get to know the ins and outs of what's relevant, what's hot, what's good, what's going to bring value to a business. And you're speaking to the best individuals on a daily basis. It's going to give you a competitive edge versus if I know you recruit across a lot of things. You recruit software engineers and DevOps engineers and data scientists, I don't know, and accountants and nurses, or whatever that may be. I think it's very hard to be an expert when you are so broad. Where the difference with us is, our network of candidates is narrow, but it's deep, right? And a lot of other people's are, it's very, very wide, but not as deep. And that's the way that we like. And in whatever you want to call it, data science, machine learning, AI, there are so many different niches inside of that. You could have one good ML or AI engineer over here versus one over there, and their speciality is completely different. Like, I'll give you an example now. We're working with an early stage startup that's in the conversational AI space, right? We get a candidate over to them recently that I've known for a long time. Her master's thesis was using audio and speech data, right? That's her speciality that she's carried throughout her career. And then we can know that about this candidate, reach out to them because we've had the relationship for years and present them to the right candidate. Now, somebody else, another engineer, just may not have that expertise or even passion in that area to connect them with the right client.
So it's I mean, it's broad, it's confusing. I know this is why I love having in charge of the data space, because I gotta say is I've been in recruiting for 30 years, give or take myself here. But and I've done a little bit of everything. I've done a lot of everything. And the one space I found more confusing than anywhere else was the data space. And also, no, it wasn't the technology, it was like what they're doing, how they're doing it. Which I'm glad I hired you, because I was like, listen, like anytime anything data related came in house, I was like, that's the guy you talk to. I don't, because even sometimes like I would have a lead or a client and you would ask me questions and I was like, I don't even know what language you're like. I don't understand a word you just said to me because I don't understand the stuff. And so I can only imagine on the client end, you know, what, you know, what they're getting. If they just say like, hey, listen, go find me a senior AI engineer, you know, I can't even, I can't even fathom what they're going to get on their end. Be like, okay, cool. So we just run it. Like, what do we do? It's like, no, was it safe to say, like, so that's the specialization. It's safe to say that you're hunting these people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. First and foremost, we already have the network, right? So, we're in a fortunate position where our initial phase of a search is not to headhunt, because our initial stage is go into the people we already know and have relationships with, because we do have this depth of candidate database that we have known for 8 years, that we know specialize in this particular area, that we will go to. I can give you a good recent example, because right now we are working to help staff an AI arm of a very prestigious company that probably on nearly every desktop or laptop in the United States is their flagship product. So very well known. And when they were looking to bring on a recruitment agency, we had an initial conversation. They said, "Hey, can you give us some profiles of candidates that you work with?" Right. Just kind of like a proof of, we are who we say we are, or we're saying that we are. And we hadn't took a job order, or, we just found out some basics. Okay, I think we understand what you're looking for. I sent them like 8 candidates that we'd worked with and we've known for several years, that we thought could bring value to the company as the type that they're looking for. Uh, and out of those 8 that I sent, they hired one of them straight away. So, and that was even before working the job, right? The candidates that we sent just as kind of like, here's a sample, we were right on the money, because we understand intimately what our clients are looking for, just because of our depth of experience and expertise and specialization in the space.
So that's things also, obviously you talked about the network, you talked about being specialized. On the client end of it, what have you found extremely helpful? So obviously, you've got this new range of engineer, right? This new, thing. How are you talking to the clients about, what they're looking for? Because I'm sure they're as confused as everybody else is out there. So
Yeah,
what's your take on that?
yeah. It's interesting, and it kind of happened, like I said, like 8 years ago, when kind of data scientists were first like new. It's really about them understanding what they want this person to achieve, right? Because we've spoke with clients in the past. It's like, okay, well, you want to hire this person, and I'm like, well, describe to us, like, what do you want them to achieve? Like, what does success look like? What are sort of the business outcomes you want from them? And the rebuttal sometimes has been, well, we don't really know. We're hoping we just hire this person, they figure it out, right? And they figure out where they can bring value, which I mean, it's possible to do that, and it's not to say that it can't work in some way, but it is probably suboptimal from both sides of the equation. I think it's always good for a client to really look and say, okay, well, we want to hire this person because we want them to bring value, but where is it, right? Where are some tangible areas of the business where they can either increase productivity or reduce cost, or kind of build like a framework or a roadmap that we feel that this person walking in can get to. And then on top of that, they can also bring in their expertise and work with other stakeholders and see, okay, well, where else can I provide value? Okay, but at least have say that, it's kind of like if you have a big plot of land and you went to a builder and said, like, build me a house, like the builder's going to say, well, what type of house do you want? Right? They can still build you one, but you're probably going to get what you want out of it if you give them some kind of framework to work inside of. And I think that's where sometimes, obviously not everybody, but sometimes when speaking with clients, that they should probably think about and maybe even do some like more research in terms of competitors, how are they leveraging AI, what are some of the tools that they've implemented, build a bit of a framework before just saying, okay, we just want to hire this person and not figure it out.
So obviously, I mean, this is real. I mean, we're still relatively, I mean, let's call it new in the space, even though it's been around for a while. Are you getting those questions? I mean, isn't that like, hey, I've got a big plot of land. We know what we need to do. Like, John, what do we like? What do we do? Are you find yourself getting a lot of that these days? And if you are, like, how are you helping your clients? How are you helping your clients with that framework? Like, I know you said like it's all about like what are you trying to do over here, but how much of your, I guess the question is like how much of your job did you find being guidance and advice and coaching versus just grabbing keywords and being like, oh yeah, let's go build you a house.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, when we engage with somebody, we always say it is a true partnership, right? I mean, we'll even say to clients, listen, like if you just want to hire us to throw you resumes and hope that something sticks, like we're not for you, and we'll turn that business away because it's just not how we operate. Because there's not going to be success there. Both sides are not set up for success. So for us, it's all about creating that partnership and trying to guide them to be successful in the hiring process. Now, that's obviously like, what are the right candidates to target? Also, how are you going to sell the opportunity, right? How are you going to present this to the candidates who are in a very competitive market? Interview process, compensate. I mean, it all goes into, like, say, being a coach, but I just see it more just having a true relationship with a client and understanding. And on that first call, if you're saying, the client says, all right, this is what we're looking for. That's great, but we will always move in more into conversation. Okay, have you thought about this? Okay, have you, what challenges have you had? What challenges you had previously for hiring somebody like this? What are the common denominators you found for not getting somebody over the line? By asking questions like that, you can start to think about where there's a disconnect and where we can help and provide more value. Um, than just, yeah, send me Python, PyTorch, whatever, and we'll do a few key sets and throw you some resumes. That's not us. Don't use us if that's what you want to do.
The clients that really want to separate themselves. So advice to clients out there that really want to separate themselves in arguably a crazy competitive landscape. What's the advice that you give them right now?
Oof, that's a good question. I mean, what candidates are looking for is ownership, right? And the ability to really explore this area that is just changing so rapidly. I don't think that candidates want to come in and feel that there's okay, like that they're going to be put in a box. I think the best AI engineers are keeping up with the latest research, right? They're playing around with stuff at home and doing prototypes and like have that passion behind it. Uh, and kind of facilitating that environment. And when they speak to the candidates, that the candidates feel like this is the environment that they're going to step into, I think is something that's attractive for them. I mean, it's tough for clients to hire good AI engineers out there. I mean, the shameless plug would say just use us. That would be the easiest thing to say, but probably shouldn't say that, or a good other agency, whatever. Hire somebody that is specialized in this area because it is very competitive. there's these people are getting LinkedIn messages and emails and phone calls, every day, and they'll pick up the phone to somebody. I had one. I think I put it in our general Slack a few weeks ago, right? I called somebody that I know. He didn't pick up, so I dropped him an email, and he replied back, and he was like, "Oh, John, like it's great to hear from you. You don't know how refreshing it is to get an email from an actual human." I remember. I think I dropped it into our Slack, and it was just so funny, right? Because they're getting bombarded with these automated, like, generated emails and fluff, and that's not going to attract a good quality candidate, to whether that's the actual clients doing the initial outreach, or they're using another agency or something to outreach to these candidates. They're going to want to work with people that they know and they trust. And I think, the people that we work with trust us to put them in front of the right opportunities, because we will match them with something they're excited about, and we'll match their precise skill set to what the client's looking for too.
Nice. So as we close out a little bit, okay. So some quick questions for you. What is your favorite part? I mean, somebody who's been a recruiter for 8 years,
Uh,
you're psychotic. What is your favorite part about now the dawn of AI, the generation of AI, and the AI recruiting space? Like, what's really driving
I
you, man?
mean, look, the speed at which is moving is it's obviously great to be a part of, and even though I'm not an engineer, it's just fun, right, to see how things are developing, and it's fascinating, speaking to real top level engineers, and diving into what they're doing and what they're trying to achieve, and like what's the next phase of this. I mean, I'm sitting there, and it's almost like you're getting an insight into the future, right? You're hearing about the future right now, and that's super cool. Like it really is. Like, and then I'll get on and it's like, okay, I don't quite understand that, and then I'll get into ChatGPT. It's like, okay, tell me some more about this. Summarize this for me, and then find out stuff like that. Um, so yeah, it's a cool space to be in. Yeah, I'm fortunate that I'm in the space.
Nice. Toughest jobs recently, or that you've had to fill in previous days that kind of stick out to you?
Toughest jobs?
First of all, I know some of the recent jobs you filled have been pretty freaking.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking for a higher skill set of this, I guess they're all kind of tough. Um, I would say in general, maybe the slightly tougher ones, or maybe when the founding engineers are, AI startups, because it goes way past, just the experience that they have. Like it really needs to be a very precise cultural fit when somebody's like 6, 8, 10 people. So. Uh, Not one specific sticks out, but I say in general, leveraging someone like ourselves, where we really know these people, like as people too, and can match the culture fit as well. I think that can be a little bit tougher sometimes, but we do it.
So I get I guess the differentiating, and obviously in the recruiting space out there, there's been a lot of I don't know, talk is the word for it, but how everything's getting automated these days and everyone's getting blasted. And now we're going to put you, I'm going to have your agent's going to talk to my agent, it's going to talk to that agent. And now, like, just agents are going to just, I guess you have an opinion on that, or, I mean, I have an opinion on it. Everyone knows about it.
Yeah, look, I know it makes me smile, right? It makes me smile because you hear like everything's going to be automated, right? No one's ever going to talk to each other anymore. No, like people are just going to sit in the room by themselves and not speak to anybody ever again, apparently, because everything's going to be automated, which we know is nonsense. Look, and when companies are talking about AI and how it's going to move forward and what it's going to do for the business. I mean, they're sat there talking to other people, right? They're not talking to robots when they're like conveying this. It is still a people business, right? And to leverage the best out of AI, I mean, it's going to be the people who, yeah, have the best individuals, but also put together the best teams. And putting together a best team is about collaboration, communication, sharing of ideas, sharing the latest research, right? Pushing each other, pushing boundaries, like to be the best engineer that you can be, right? AI is not going to take that away, right? It's going to help people to do their jobs, but it's going to be that human ingenuity that pushes boundaries.
Nice. Well, you said a couple of things that I first of all, obviously, own your network. I think being highly specialized, always been one of those things. Find something you're good at, do it better than anybody else. But you've definitely given great examples of how being highly specialized in your craft is critical, right? Because the people you talked to 6 years ago are different than the people you're going to talk to today. And maybe the people you talked to 6 years ago are now the people you need to be talking to today, right? Because they're not doing today what they did 6 years ago. They've rebranded themselves also. Something you mentioned a lot was like kind of adding value to your clients, adding value to candidates. I think that's a great takeaway that I know is undervalued in the recruiting space. A lot of people I talk about the business of recruiting, but it's the business of business. It's understanding, what you're doing, who's building it, who's using it, and why you really need somebody, and then diving in there and getting into that. So the humanity, if you will, the approach on really finding, caring about, who you place in your positions. I'll plug, that company one more time because I can count on this hand on 12 years of business and over 750 placements that we have done. How many people have have not worked out in their job? And we have the stories to prove it. And I think, John, you've been a tremendous value and as a leader and an expert in the AI space, in the data space, machine learning, of everything that's happened over the couple of years. So I can tell you that selfishly, I'm very happy to have you. So I'll put it at that. But I can tell you that I know for a fact that there are a lot of clients, candidates, and people in this space alone in New York City that really have your expertise. So thank you for what you do.
I'm very thankful too. It's
So
very cool to be in this space. So I'm excited to see where it continues to go.
all right, cool. And I know for everyone watching, we are both human. It's real background, by the way. It's actual plant. There's a panda
It,
bear.
if I was a robot, I would have given me a prettier face than this.
I would have made myself look a lot better. I would have done something with the gray beard. So all right. Well, listen, we'll be having more interviews with different folks of Averity to bring in their expertise to the table and see what's going on out there in the world. Thank you everybody for chiming in. John, can't thank you enough. The rest of the world,
Thank
people
you.
hire people. We'll see you soon.